Good day, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, once again, the resident movie lover himself, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and welcome back to the 2013 Bridgewater's Finest Movie Awards, presented in conjunction and co-promoted with the Resident Movie Lover blog at residentmovielover.blogspot.ca. So we've gone through quite a bit in our last couple of videos. In the last video, of course, we gave away our Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Director awards, top 3 in each one of those. Congratulations to all the winners. Now we're getting into one of the big ones. This, ladies and gentlemen, is my list of the top 10 worst movies of 2013. It's a biggie. Let's get right into it. We're going to have a lot of fun. First of all, a couple of honorable mentions in sucking in the year of 2013 didn't quite make it on the list. Honorable mention goes to Snitch, which is basically a 2-hour-long PSA against mandatory minimum sentencing, and Kick-Ass 2, which is basically an exploration of how many times can you say faggot in an hour and a half. Both of those movies sucked, but not nearly as much as the 10 that have made this list. So let's get started. Number 10 on my list of worst movies of 2013 is Dark Skies. Now, Dark Skies is a sci-fi thriller starring Kerry Russell, Josh Hamilton, and Dakota Goyo, and is directed by Scott Charles Stewart. In Dark Skies, a suburban family is terrorized and haunted by an unseen force that seems bent on the family's destruction. So some unnamed something basically just trolls the hell out of generic white suburban family number 7,971. And let's be perfectly honest, trolling them is what they're doing. They wake up one morning and the kitchen is all messed up. They wake up another morning and there's a bunch of bottles stacked on a table. They're in the house one night and 8 security alarms get tripped at the same time. This is not menacing. This is just whatever this unseen force is. It's just screwing with these guys. It's not exactly scary. They're having fun. Not to mention, the parents have this pigeonholed conflict between each other that basically boils down to the parents hate each other because capitalism. There's some bonus points in there for unintentional comedy. At some points this movie is hilarious, which is not a good thing. The screenplay leaves a lot to be desired, even for horror fans who are willing to accept, at times, terrible screenplays as long as their horror movies are good. And I'm not saying it was Aliens, but it was Aliens. Therefore, at a rating of 40 out of 100, Dark Skies is my number 10 worst movie of 2013. Number 9 on my list of worst movies of 2013, The Right Kind of Wrong. The Right Kind of Wrong is a romantic comedy starring Ryan Kwanten, Sarah Koenig, and Catherine O'Hara, and is directed by Jeremiah Chechik. Now, in The Right Kind of Wrong, struggling writer Leo Palomino goes to great lengths to prove his love at first sight to newly married to another man, Colette, and at the same time prove his own self-worth. Now, The Right Kind of Wrong gets points for being, how do I want to put this, an unconventional romantic comedy. It's kind of like the 5-Year Engagement. Like, it's always better to be unique than to just be a cookie cutter. So I have to give it some points for that because it is unique in its own way. Not necessarily good way, but it's unique in its own way. I could not shake the feeling while watching this movie that everything in it is just too ridiculous. It's too campy, it's too chaotic, and it's too random for me to suspend disbelief and take anything that's going on seriously or believably. Toss on top of that the fact that the movie tosses on emotional subtext for absolutely no reason, just for the sake of it being there. I can't say that I wasn't entertained, because I was, and again, I give it points for being unconventional. Unfortunately, virtually nothing in this movie was believable, or nothing in it really worked for me on too much of any significant level. Again, I will give it some props. I'll also give it some props for a quite funny cameo by Will Sasso. At a rating of 40 out of 100, The Right Kind of Wrong is number 9 on my top 10 worst movies of 2013. Number 8 on my list of the top 10 worst movies of 2013 is Bullet to the Head. Now, Bullet to the Head is a crime thriller starring Sylvester Stallone, Sung Kang, and Christian Slater, and is directed by Walter Hill. In Bullet to the Head, a DC detective travels to New Orleans, Louisiana to investigate the death of a local police officer, forming an uneasy alliance with a local hitman to defeat a common enemy. First of all, love me some Sly Stallone, which makes this movie all that much more disappointing. The flick is all over the place, and it's super duper cliched, and sometimes in Stallone movies that works. I don't ask for perfect, unique originality from the guy that does the Rocky movies and Rambo. That's not what I need. Sometimes it works in Stallone movies. Here, unfortunately, it doesn't. The dialogue in the movie is hit and miss at best. Sometimes it's up, but sometimes it's way, way down. And while Jason Momoa is a total badass, Sung Kang seldom feels like more than a glorified Kato from Green Hornet. With Bullet to the Head, you have a character-driven movie that lacks good characters. And at that point, it becomes impossible to do well. At a rating of 40 out of 100, Bullet to the Head is my number 8 worst movie of 2013. My number 7 worst movie of 2013 is No One Lives. Now, No One Lives is a horror starring Luke Evans, Adelaide Clemens, and Lee Tergesen, directed by Ryuhei Kitamura. In No One Lives, Driver and his girlfriend are kidnapped by a gang of road bandits who have the tables turned on them as Driver fights to maintain his dark history and impending secret. This horror movie starts with the unremarkable cute girl in underwear running through the woods yelling and screaming trope, which is among the tropiest of the horror movie tropes. There's bad acting all around in this movie, except for Luke Evans, who actually has a pretty good performance, and Adelaide Clemens has her moments. But this is a group of the worst, dumbest, fumbliest bandits that have ever existed, getting punked for a little over an hour by someone who is apparently a super killer. What else you got? No One Lives is unintentionally funny in a lot of places, but it never goes far enough to get into that The Room so bad it's good territory. At a rating of 30 out of 100, No One Lives is my number 7 worst movie of 2013. Number 6 on my list of the top 10 worst movies of 2013 is Parker. Now, Parker is a crime thriller starring Jason Statham, Jennifer Lopez, and Nick Nolte, directed by Taylor Hackford. Kind of funny that the director of this movie has Hack right in his name. Now, in Parker, the titular character, Parker, is a thief with a unique code of ethics who's double-crossed by his crew and left for dead. Teaming up with a struggling real estate agent, Parker seeks revenge. Yup, you heard right. Parker teams up with a struggling real estate agent. Why? Revenge! I have to ask a question before we go any further. Does Parker have magic anti-detection powers? Because it seems like every 10 seconds in this movie, Parker's breaking into a car or breaking into a house with literally dozens of people around him, and not one person sees him or thinks, maybe I should call the cops. Let's be honest, Parker is a low-reward crime thriller with no real punch, although Jason Statham is always entertaining, and I always like the little spins that he puts on his characters. But the big thing that pulls this movie down is Jennifer Lopez. I don't want to sound like a blind hater, but Jennifer Lopez sucks in this movie. While not a great actress to begin with, she's got real bad acting in this one. Her subplot is terrible. It's ham-handed. It's pointless. Why is she even there? It makes no sense whatsoever. It's not resolved at the end. It's just kind of there, and then, oh, okay, it's gone again. There is literally no point for Jennifer Lopez to be in this movie. At a rating of 30 out of 100, Parker is my number 6 worst movie of 2013. Number 5 on my list of worst movies of 2013, The Last Exorcism, Part 2. Now, The Last Exorcism Part 2 is a horror movie starring Ashley Bell, Spencer Treat Clark, and Andrew Sensenig, and directed by Ed Gas Donnelly. The Last Exorcism Part 2 continues the story of Nell Sweetser, attempting to move on from the events of the first movie, but finding that the evil force which possessed her once is not finished yet. Now, we talked about this movie a little bit in an earlier video, but I can't stress enough how depressing and terrible it is when you have a movie that adds writers, including the director, and the writing gets tangibly worse than it was in the first movie. While it was mildly cool to see the continuation of the Nell character, which is a character that I like, that doesn't matter. Why? Costume parade. No, seriously, there's a scene where 3 of them go to a costume parade. Whoa. Last Exorcism Part 2 is bad even for a sequel, much less as its own standalone movie. While the first Last Exorcism, which I always find funny to say, while the first movie actually built tension really well, had some good scares, had some good acting, and actually ended really interestingly, whether it was good or bad, at least it was interesting, this movie has no tension building whatsoever. There's virtually no scares to be found whatsoever, and the last half hour of this movie is so bad, it's almost hilarious. At a rating of 25 out of 100, The Last Exorcism Part 2 is number 5 on my top 10 worst movies of 2013. Number 4 on my list of worst movies of 2013, Movie 43. Movie 43 is a comedy starring an ensemble cast of literally dozens, featuring, but not of course limited to, Halle Berry, Hugh Jackman, Gerard Butler, Elizabeth Banks, Emma Stone, Chloe Grace Moretz. Sounds pretty good, right? And is directed in parts by Elizabeth Banks, Steve Carr, Stephen Brill, and others. Movie 43 is an ensemble comedy. Sounds good, right? Intertwining 16 different short films. Sounds good, right? Within an overarching story of 3 boys and their search for Movie 43, the most banned movie ever made. What? I get it. Sometimes the setups for the jokes work. It's not like you're not going to laugh. You probably will. And I even like a lot of the people that's in it. Can I ask a question? Why? 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 No, honestly, why? Why? This completely blows me away. The major story arc here is one that no one in their right mind should care about. Why in the world would you care about this? It's a stupid bunch of stupid nothing. 3 unwritten, tropey teenagers with terrible dialogue who are total dicks to one another searching for a movie online. It means nothing. You can't just ham-hand, oh, it'll end the world when they find it, and make it have meaning. It is totally meaningless. You know what? If you wanted to make something good, release the 16 short films as 16 short films. Screw the overarching story. You don't need it. 16 short films with these actors would have been great. You may have even gotten something from some award something for a couple of them, because a couple of the short films are actually good. At a rating of a pity 25 out of 100, Movie 43 is my number 4 worst movie of 2013. Why? Number 3 on my worst movies of 2013 is 21 and Over. 21 and Over is a comedy starring Justin Chon, Skylar Astin, and Miles Teller. Those are fake names. And directed by John Lucas and Scott Moore. In 21 and Over, 3 friends embark on a night of wild partying and binge drinking on the night of one friend's 21st birthday and the night before a life-altering medical school exam. Oh, hey Project X, we meet again. You know, I expect so much more from the 2 guys who wrote The Hangover, because the writers of this movie and the directors of this movie wrote The Hangover. So I expect a lot more from these guys who now apparently exist solely on ripping themselves off. What I will say for this movie is, at least it doesn't bury the lead. Right at the beginning of the movie, you have a walk of shame, which is kind of what I took after I watched this movie. 21 and Over has some of the worst dialogue I've ever heard in movies. Dead serious. Okay, a couple lines were okay. But seriously, that one character looks and sounds like a 12-year-old Danny McBride. No likey. Ultimately, absolutely nothing in this movie matters at all. And then even when it tries to be weighty and emotional and believable and serious, it fails miserably. It face plants at coming anywhere close to relatable or genuine. And it would have been okay if you wouldn't have tried to do that, but you tried to do that and failed at it terribly. I would rather nothing at all than horrendous failure. Once again, at a rating of a pity 25 out of 100, 21 and over is my number 3 worst movie of 2013. My number 2 worst movie of 2013 is A Good Day to Die Hard. A Good Day to Die Hard is a criminal action thriller starring Bruce Willis, Cole Hauser, and Sebastian Koch, and directed by John Moore. John McClane travels to Russia in order to help his son, now a CIA operative working to prevent a nuclear heist. Father and son team up against the criminal underworld. Who cares? Clearly not the people in the movie. We talked about this in an earlier video, but A Good Day to Die Hard to me was just a hollow piece of nothing. A big pile of steaming nothing. Everything in this movie feels completely superficial, from the performances, the interrelationship of the characters, the story, the action, the direction. Everything in this movie felt like nothing. Legitimately, nothing in this movie matters, and nothing in this movie was given any effort. And it is a sad, sad day when the Die Hard franchise becomes boring, complacent, and unable to work for me on any level. This is a personal message to Bruce Willis, as I know you'll watch this video. Bruce, you are the gatekeeper of the Die Hard mythology. You have said that yourself. You are the only one that has been there for every Die Hard movie. You are the gatekeeper of the mythology, and you're only in it for a paycheck. I would rather see no Die Hard at all than see this Die Hard. At a ranking barely scraping 25 out of 100, A Good Day to Die Hard is my number 2 worst movie of 2013. And here it is, folks. My number 1 worst movie of 2013 is Black Rock. Now, Black Rock is a suspense thriller starring Kate Bosworth, Catherine Asselton, and Lake Bell, and is directed by Catherine Asselton. In Black Rock, 3 childhood friends reunite for a weekend on a remote island, encountering a small group of local hunters. Their vacation quickly turns into a struggle for survival. Let me tell you a story. Hey, you two, stop fighting, because I have cancer, and all I want is for the 3 of us to have a great weekend away together. Okay. LOL, JK, I don't really have cancer, but yay, camping! Ugh. So now we're on an island. We're bitching at each other constantly. And over the top of the hill comes a group of 3 hunters, who at this point I wouldn't be surprised if they came down and immediately tried to rape us. Should we run away? Nope. Make out time. Oh shit, one of them's dead. Now it's Lord of the Flies. Naked Lord of the Flies. This is among the dumbest movies I have ever seen. I want to be mad at the stupid characters. I want to be mad at the pigeonholed conflicts that nobody does or should give a damn about. But I almost feel bad for how bad this movie is. Because every so often there's this little nugget. There's this one scene that's like, it's okay. And you think, maybe you can get a little momentum off of this. But in the end, it just falls back into stupidity. No one and nothing in this movie is believable. It's boring. It's terrible. It is the worst movie of 2013. At a rating of a mere 10 out of 100, Black Rock is the number 1 worst movie of 2013. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it. That is our top 10 worst movies of 2013. Sometimes I struggle. I have less so this year and last year actively sought out bad movies for the express purpose of putting them on this list, and yet somehow I still managed to find no fewer than 12 stinkers this year. So if I try even less, maybe eventually I might have to reduce this list, but there's always some crap to be found coming out of Hollywood. I want to thank you very, very much for taking the time to pop on, watch this video, and coming up next, my favorite videos that I do all year. It is part 1 of my 2-part top 20 best movies of 2013. It's the big one. It's the most fun one to do, and we're ready to get at it. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and most importantly, the resident movie lover himself, in conjunction with the Resident Movie Lover blog at residentmovielover.blogspot.ca. We'll see you next time for part 1 of the top 20 best movies of 2013. Yeah!